not really in a rush to go talk to the Democracy Spring people. But,
so you guys aren't with them?
No.
No, we're an independent contingent of communists.
Yeah.
Independent. Okay. Are there a lot of other organized communists here?
Yesterday there was a march with the Workers' World Party, which is a Trotskyist organization.
They're not Trotskyists, we found out.
They're not?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was misinformation on my part.
Right, I thought so too, but we looked on their website. They don't have Trotsky on their website, so.
It's kind of hard to keep up with all the sects or the divisions within communism, I think. With the guys here and in Cleveland, there were some, I think.
Probably, yeah.
Did you guys make it there or just here?
No, just here. I'm from a ways off,
yeah.
So I'm surprised I even made it here.
Where are you guys from then?
I'm from Reading.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's not too far.
I'm from South Carolina.
That's kind of far.
yeah, 12 hours in the car. Definitely not fun.
Are you guys friends, or you just met up here and like, hey, let's do it?
We're friends.
We're friends, yeah.
Okay. Is the version of communism, first of all, how would you guys define communism?
That's a really, really open question.
I know, that's why I'm asking you
that's
personally.
That's a really hard question to answer.
You say you're for it, right? So.
Yeah, read Manifesto. That's what I can tell you. Like, read Manifesto. That's.
Yeah.
From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. That's it.
Well, there's more to the manifesto
than that. There's way more to the manifesto than that.
It's an 87-page document, and then capital's another 800 of me to summarize, and
that's only including. That's not even including like all the
that's just
volume.
the first volume.
The first volume is 800 some pages, and there's like 7.
It's pretty hard to.
Well, what do you guys want?
It's like a complex economic system. Like, you can't just describe that in one question.
Oh God, what is capitalism? Oh.
You can't define capitalism in one.
Or communism, yeah.
You can't define capitalism or communism in one short definition.
I mean, if I had to define it, it would be the workers' ownership of the means of production.
Right.
Isn't that kind of like socialism too?
Socialism is an intermediary stage between communism and capitalism.
Right.
It's a state form of communism before a stateless form of communism.
Right.
Okay. So. That you guys want them? Like, is there a problem, and what would be the solution, or is it not that simple?
Capitalism is the problem.
Capitalism is the problem. Capitalism in and of itself, capitalism is inherently a repressive economic system, because in capitalism, someone has to fail. There is someone, in order for capitalism to succeed the way that it is built to succeed, somebody has to be on the bottom. People have to be in poverty for capitalism to succeed, because it's all about profit and not about people's needs.
Right. For example, like, we value profit to the point in the United States where we allow 48,000 veterans to sleep on the street. That's how much we value That's how much we value profit over people.
And the same with what's going on in Flint, Michigan right now with water supplies, and in North Carolina, which is a lot closer to where I am. The coal industry has ponds that have been leaking and poisoning. Coal ash has been poisoning the North Carolina water supply, and because the government of North Carolina doesn't want to piss off the big coal companies because they are making a profit from these coal companies being in their state. They don't want to make these coal companies angry, and for the sake of profit, they allow these they allow these ponds to continue leaking and poisoning people's water supplies, and people are like, it's the damage that's being done to communities is irreversible. It's like lead poisoning. You can't reverse lead poisoning. There's no cure for that.
So if that's
and that's capitalism. That's what capitalism does. Like, it allows the government and for the rich to prioritize their own profit over the lives of the people working for them.
So you're saying that capitalism is not only an economic system, it's also a governmental system? To an extent, but not, it's an economic system, but the economics and the government are very, very closely interchangeable. Like, you can't have one without the other. Like, you can't have a functioning economic system without at least some form of ruler. I don't want to say leadership, because anarchism is stateless, but it has to have some kind of like governing
it has to govern itself somehow.
There has to be a system for control of some sort.
Control. That's what I was.
And the issue is that capitalism will always value commodification over community, profit over people, and economics over ecology.
Right.
That's a fact.
So what would, in your mind, a communist America look like in terms of treating people fairly, solving problems like clean water or...
I think your first mistake was assuming that I believe in borders between nations.
Or a North American continent, or...
Well, you see, if you take away the advantages to pollution, because right now it's more cost effective to pollute than not to pollute.
Right.
If you take away that incentive where cost becomes the main focus of whatever you're doing, all of a sudden things like communities can flourish, and you see people becoming valued over profit instead of profit being valued over people, because profit is no longer a necessity because your needs are provided for. The issue is providing for people's needs, and then you can focus on making sure that people have things they want. But if people don't have things they need, there's no purpose. Me having a Ferrari doesn't help me if I don't have a house.
Exactly.
What's the, is there a single communist solution to the concern that you're disincentivizing free enterprise and taking the initiative to employ your talents, individual talents, to work in different fields of medicine, science, agriculture?
Okay, so even in the USSR, like, science flourished. Cuba science flourished compared to what it was. Venezuela science
Cuba
flourished.
puts out some of the most talented doctors in the world. So to say that, like, people aren't using their talents is, quite frankly, is bullshit. Because some of Cuban doctors are some of the most successful in the world. Cuba has has probably the best medical school in the world.
Do you guys want to see this happen? Is this more of like a personal protest, or you guys are getting the ball rolling on actual activism, gaining momentum to get a actual number of bodies in your movement growing?
That's the hope, is to talk to people and to tell people to spread the word. I don't have my bag with me because I don't carry my bag with me to events and demonstrations, but usually when I have my bag with me, I keep a copy of Manifesto in my purse in case somebody's just curious about, like, who I am and what I stand for. Like,
I have one on my phone.
Yeah.
Do you see any overlap with the Bernie supporters or the few Hillary supporters that are here?
Not Hillary supporters. No, not Hillary supporters. I do think some Bernie supporters, a lot of Bernie supporters are. I think Bernie Sanders, while I personally don't agree with not most, that's not entirely true, but I don't agree with a lot of his, like, politics, especially regarding foreign policy. But I do think that his presence in this race, in this election cycle,
has the worst sign I've ever seen. I'm sorry.
In this, I don't even know what it says.
Since George Orwell was right.
Ew.
George Orwell was a snitch.
George Orwell was a snitch.
George Orwell was a snitch and sold out communists to England.
Yeah, he was a snitch. He sold out to the government.
You guys don't like 1984 then?
No.
No.
He sold out to the government, and he wrote blatantly anti-communist propaganda.
I do like Homage to Catalonia.
Yeah, but I mean, anyway, what was I saying? I was saying something about, what was I saying before? I was just saying I was on a good roll too.
Overlap with Bernie supporters.
Oh, right. I think that Bernie's presence in this race has done really well in drawing people to the left. I don't think that that's enough. I think that we have a lot of work to do, but I definitely think his presence in this race has made a lot more people open to a lot more people discouraged with the capitalist system, because you're seeing it here. You're seeing money buying out politics, and they're sick of that. They're tired of that too. And so I feel like we are better able to reach people because people are so angry about the current system that, I mean, it's like as Mark said, a specter is haunting, not Europe, a specter is haunting America this time.
Do you think that cronyism, racism, sexism, xenophobia, are those distractions from your main issue?
No, those are inherently
parts of capitalism. Capitalism succeeds because racism, sexism exists. Like, capitalism thrives off of oppressed peoples. Like, let's use gentrification for an example in major cities. They're gentrifying neighborhoods that are historically neighborhoods that are populated by people of color, and they're driving the people of color out of these neighborhoods. And economic divides in cities are very, very much race-based. I mean, you can see that. You can go to most major cities and draw a line where the black communities and where the Hispanic communities are in cities, in metro areas. It's definitely visible here, isn't it? I mean, I know I'm not from here. To an extent. I know it's very visible in the South. It's extremely visible in the South.
It's also very visible in Reading. Reading, so Reading School District takes up the entire city of Reading. Governor Mifflin School District starts pretty much right outside the city, but Oak Brook, which is a housing project, is in sight of Governor Mifflin High School. It's about maybe a 10-minute walk. Oak Brook kids go to Reading High.
In the middle of the city. In
the middle of the city, which is a 15-minute drive. You could probably walk from Oak Brook to Governor Mifflin faster than you can drive from Oak Brook to Reading.
Doesn't
and
seem
that's
very efficient.
Gerrymandering.
No.
And it's because they want that capitalism thrives off of these kind of like segregation. And Charlotte definitely has a segregation problem. I can say that with complete confidence because I am from that area. Charlotte, North Carolina has a huge problem with hypersegregation in schools. A third of Charlotte schools are upwards of 90%, 95% of one color.
Is there any way to maintain a capitalist system and have a moral or ethical revolution within individuals and still get what you want in terms of everyone being fed and educated?
No, because capitalism itself, that's not possible. Capitalism is inherently oppressive. It's exploitative in nature. And you can't have a capitalist system without exploitation, without oppression.
And capitalism in decay inevitably leads to fascism. Like the lesser evilism of capitalism, which is inherent. It's not this election, it's every election. The lesser evilism of capitalism is that eventually you reach a point where the lesser evils reach a point where there's no difference.
Right.
Which is very close to the point we're at right now.
Where sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference between the two parties.
So there could be overlap, but you're saying that's a bad thing because then it confuses people, or?
Well,
no.
I'm saying it's a bad thing because they're both extremely evil.
Yeah, the lesser evil becomes less and less good each time.
Yeah, like the lesser evil, it's like, oh well, they're more evil than the person that came before them, and every election cycle it's a little bit more and more and more until you have two fascists running against each other, two different candidates that have basically the exact same plans, but they word them in different ways. I mean, the Obama administration has deported more people through ICE than any prior president. So, and that's what Trump's talking about doing, but Obama's already doing it. So what's the difference?
Right, and if you listen to the way that this election is being portrayed on both sides, depending on who you're listening to, this election is either, Pinochet versus Hillary Clinton or Stalin versus Trump, and that's not the situation at all. It's not even similar to the situation.
Right. I mean, I heard someone was like, basically this election is like Hitler versus Mussolini. Who would you choose? And I'm like, I don't think that's a completely accurate, analogy. The sentiment is is that a llama?
Looks like it. No, alpaca.
Oh, it's an alpaca.
I'm very impressed that you could identify the difference between those two.
But like, I don't completely agree with the analogy, but I definitely understand the sentiment behind saying these two people are both like horrible, horrible fascists with very similar politics. And I mean, while the right is like genuinely fascist, the center, which is, as much as they want to claim they're the left, they're not. They're the center. As much as the center wants to act like, they're so much better, they have a lot of the same ideals. They just...
It's a kinder, friendlier fascism.
It's like kinder and friendlier. And they try to word it and make it look all sweet and sugar-coated.
Do you guys
it's
consider yourself on the left?
Yes.
Yes.
Like far left?
Far
left.
Yes,
far left.
Are you guys registered to vote?
Yes.
Which party?
I don't have to register as a party in South Carolina.
Not declared. Okay.
No, we don't at all. South Carolina does not do registering by parties because we have open primaries. We just choose at on voting day.
I don't feel comfortable speaking for my party.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. But it is. You have I do have a party designation on your voter registration card.
I have a party designation.
Okay. Are you planning on voting in November?
Absolutely.
I do.
Okay. Any of these two guys or
no? I'll be voting for Gloria La Riva.
I'm not familiar with.
From the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
Okay. You? You know?
It depends on who's on the South Carolina ticket. That hasn't been fully decided yet. That's not completely. That won't be. We won't know that information until closer to September.
Okay.
So that'll be when I make up my mind on which candidate. It just depends on who's going to be running in the state.
Here's a fellow man with a red flag over here. Is he with you guys? You know him, or
yeah.
he's just okay? How you doing, man?
All right.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good. Here's Blake.
Wow.
Well, thanks for talking,
Lots
guys.
of cameras.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh gosh.
They're curious.
I think I've exhausted. Okay. All right.
And if I could talk very briefly about
Sure.
one more thing.
Sure.
When we appointed a queer person as the leader of the U.S. military, or the acting leader of the U.S. military, we were expected to, as a queer person, I was expected to be very pleased about that. But I'm not very pleased about us dropping bombs on anyone, regardless of if they come down with rainbows or not.
Exactly, and that's what the Democratic Party is. It's like, oh well, we're still gonna drop bombs on people, but we're gonna drop bombs with rainbows on them.
Right.
And we're gonna act like we're gonna appoint the diverse group of people to go to the global south and cause, world destruction. It's not. I mean, it doesn't matter who's dropping the bombs. I mean, it's all superficial. How does having a queer person lead the military help a young trans person of color who gets killed in their community just for being trans? And the murder rate for trans women of color is 1 in 8.
It's
so
tokenism versus liberation.
Yeah, exactly. We have this one token trans person or our one token queer person. That doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference to the average everyday queer person or the average everyday trans person. I mean, it's like saying that, because Obama was president, a black man was elected president, that means racism is over. What? No, that's no, you can't just say, that's not how that works.
It's the difference between weather and climate.
Right. You can say, oh, well, it's hot outside. It snowed during the winter, that means global warming's not real. It's that doesn't make sense. You can't solve a problem by there was one good thing, that means it's all over.
So
Time to go.
Would you foresee a transition in a communist society from the way we have a military now into no military, or a military that doesn't bomb people? Is that what would that look like?
The ideal circumstance is the end of state borders, and as a result, also the end of militaries.
In an ideal world, in a future that is not going to come in the near future, but perhaps eventually, and hopefully eventually, the need for militaries will be obsolete because there won't be states. There won't be this competition and constant need to fight each other, because we'll all have our needs provided for. And why would we need to fight each other if our needs are all met?
Do you wanna get in or
Finish up what you're doing. I can take the next round.
yeah?
Well,
I'm sure.
we'll be here all night.
Looks like it.
Sure.
All right. Thanks for your time, guys.
No problem.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I do.
Well, thank
I love
you.
to support Palestine.
doesn't
So
love-
from me, from Patricia Holmes to you, I support Palestine.
Long live Palestine, long live the
live
Intifada.
Intifada.
Were you guys here last night when they were burning the signs and the
They were.
flags?
I actually left right before that, but we
weren't
up
over
there.
here. We were over there.
We were over there when they were burning the Israeli flag and the American
Jeez.
flag, and I was like, because I had my Palestine flag on, and I'm just like, I'm jumping around.
The issue is settler states.
settler colonial complex.
The U.S. is also not a legitimate nation.
Because all the land is stolen.
No, not even by that, by Bavarian definition of statehood, which is that a state has to maintain the monopoly of force over a given territory, the legitimate monopoly of force over a given territory. If it exceeds that, it's no longer a legitimate state. The issue is that the United States no longer stays within its own given territory or acts in self-defense. It delegitimizes itself.
You're making a mess of me so easy, crushing my